For centuries, we've placed them at the manger, three kings on camels arriving the same night shepherds knelt in the straw. We've named them, we've counted them, we've woven them so deeply into the Christmas story that it feels like Scripture itself. But Matthew chapter 2 tells a very different story. There were no kings, no manger, no newborn wrapped in cloth that night. What actually happened was far more mysterious and far more meaningful than anything tradition has given us.
This. Hide it quickly.
Because before the wise men ever left their homeland, something was already unfolding in Jerusalem.
The ancient texts confirm the prophecy.
Something almost no one ever talks about.
He knows we were involved.
Look away, quickly!
This is disastrous.
A question was being asked in the halls of power that would set the entire story in motion.
The Most High reside within these walls, set apart. The Most High reside within these walls, set apart.
And strangers were asking it. The birth of Jesus didn't just fulfill prophecy. It exposed something uncomfortable. Something that still reaches into today.
Before the rains come. The ancient path is treacherous. These grapes are truly blessed.
As are we all, my friend.
The people who had the scriptures didn't recognize him. The people who had nothing but a sign in the sky traveled across deserts to find him. And the deeper we go into this account, the more one question rises to the surface. A question that reaches beyond Bethlehem and into every generation since. Why did God call strangers from a distant land before he called his own people? Sometimes the people who should recognize Jesus don't.
But it is empty.
And the ones who do come from far away.
One, two, three, four, five. Wait. Oh, of course.
This is the untold story of the wise men, and it begins with a star. If you want to understand what really happened, you have to start with what Scripture actually records. And that means opening Matthew chapter 2.
Pay close attention, for the truth is not merely found in scrolls.
The only place in the entire Bible where the wise men appear.
10 shekels for the finest pottery.
Too much. I will give you 5.
Not in
I
Luke,
seek the one
not in
who is
Mark,
born
not in
King
John.
of the Jews. Where is he?
Only Matthew. And what Matthew gives us is simpler than we've been taught, but also far richer. He doesn't tell us their names.
Not just to the city, but to the house itself.
I see it now, the alarm.
The calculation is complete.
By the heavens, it is time.
He doesn't say there were 3 of them. He never calls them kings. There are no camels, no stable, no manger scene with shepherds standing nearby. Those details came later, centuries later. Shaped by tradition, medieval art, and well-meaning imagination. But they aren't in the text. Here's what Matthew does say.
Hurry! Hurry! I've never seen anything like it. To Bethlehem.
Wise men from the east came to Jerusalem following the star. They asked a question that shook the city. They were sent to Bethlehem.
We honor you, great king.
And when they arrived, they didn't find a newborn lying in a feeding trough. They found a child in a house. The Greek word Matthew uses is paidion, not brephos, which means infant. This matters because it means the wise men didn't arrive on the night of Jesus' birth. They came later. Weeks later, maybe even months. By the time they knocked on that door in Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph were no longer refugees in a stable. They had found shelter. They had settled, at least for a time. And Jesus, though still very young, was no longer the newborn the shepherds had seen. This detail
Near the seventh
opens a
star
window
of the Great
into something
Bear.
deeper.
Do you see the movement?
God didn't bring everyone to Jesus at the same moment. The shepherds came immediately, summoned by angels in the middle of the night.
We're done.
Heed my words, for the path ahead is fraught with peril.
The wise men, their journey was long, costly, and uncertain. And that raises a question worth considering.
The drums are loud.
Why did God allow some to arrive right away, while others had to travel so far for so long? Just to kneel before the same king. What does that timing reveal about the heart of God and the nature of faith? The names we know them by, Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar, don't appear anywhere in Scripture. They show up centuries after Christ, woven into Christian tradition through later texts.
Look there, Your Majesty. That alignment confirms the prophecy in the scroll.
By the time artists began painting nativity scenes, these names had become fixed in the imagination of the church. The idea that there were three of them comes from the three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Three gifts. So the reasoning went, must mean three givers. But Matthew never assigns a number. There could have been 2, there could have been 12. Scripture simply says wise men, plural, and leaves it at that.
The alignment must be recalculated.
Nonsense. The sphere clearly shows.
And they weren't kings. That title came much
understand the
later,
message
inspired
and
in
learn the
part by
vision.
Psalm
The
72
dream is
and
certain.
Isaiah 60.
Receive this chain, Daniel, and with it the office of chief.
Passages that speak of kings bringing tribute to the Messiah. Over time, those prophetic images merged with the story of the Magi. And what had been a group of learned travelers became a royal delegation in robes and crowns. Medieval art did the rest. Paintings depicted them on camels, wearing jeweled crowns, kneeling in the straw. Besides shepherds and angels. The imagery was beautiful, reverent, deeply symbolic.
Hold the line! The storm grows stronger!
We are losing the trail.
But it wasn't history. Sometimes tradition adds glitter to the story, but Scripture reveals the gold. And here's what makes this so important. The real story doesn't need
is more
embellishment.
precious than gold, for it guides the
Hearken, O Israel, for these are the words of the Almighty. His covenant is ever...
It doesn't
he
need
shall be
extra
like a
characters
tree
or
planted
dramatic
by the
details
rivers of
to be
water.
powerful.
that bring
What actually happened, what Matthew carefully recorded, is profound enough on its own. So if the wise men weren't kings, then who were they? And why did God choose them, of all people, to be among the first to worship his Son? The answer takes us eastward, beyond the borders of Israel. into lands where the God of Abraham was barely known. The word Matthew uses is Magoi. In the ancient world, this term referred to a class of learned men. Scholars who studied the movements of the heavens, interpreted dreams, and served as advisors to rulers.
Look, it is the sign. The star.
They weren't sorcerers in the dark sense we might imagine today. They were seekers of meaning. Men who believed that the created order held signs. And that those signs pointed to something greater. They came from the east. Matthew is careful to remain unspecific. But in biblical literature, the East typically refers to regions beyond the Jordan River. Places like Mesopotamia, Persia, or Arabia. These were lands steeped in ancient learning, where astronomy and philosophy had flourished for centuries. It's possible, even likely, that these men were familiar with Jewish scripture. Centuries earlier, during the Babylonian exile, Jewish scholars like Daniel had lived there. Daniel himself had been called the chief of the Magi in Babylon.
Neon this time, Faith.
His influence would have left traces. Prophecies, writings, whispers of a coming king. So when the Magi saw the star, they saw more than a celestial event. They saw a fulfillment.